The Greenland Crisis. In January 2026, President Trump said the United States might use military force to take Greenland, and a congressman introduced a bill to make it the 51st state. When reporters asked if he would send the military, Trump did not say no. Greenland is the world's largest island, sitting between the Arctic and the North Atlantic. It belongs to Denmark, a NATO ally. Greenland's own leaders already said no. The Danish Prime Minister called the idea absurd. But Greenland sits on 25 of the 34 raw materials Europe needs for modern technology. America already runs a missile defense base there. As the ice melts, new oil and shipping routes are opening up. NATO only works because members do not threaten each other. If America takes land from an ally, that rule dies. A divided NATO is an open door. NATO's own Secretary General warned that Russia could be ready to attack a member state within 5 years. If that happens, a broken alliance either fails to respond or drags 32 nations into war with a nuclear power. Taiwan Invasion. In December 2025, China ran the largest war drills in its history around Taiwan. The head of U.S. forces in the Pacific said these are not drills, they are rehearsals. China has claimed Taiwan since 1949. The Pentagon says China wants to be ready to invade by 2027. Chinese warplanes and ships now cross into Taiwan's side almost every week. Taiwan makes most of the world's advanced computer chips. If China takes it, the global economy breaks overnight. The United States has said it will help Taiwan defend itself. Japan's prime minister called a Chinese attack a threat to Japan's survival. American bases in Japan sit just 70 miles away. The Council on Foreign Relations looked at every way a major war could start. Their conclusion: nothing comes close to Taiwan. If China invades, America responds. Once America responds, Japan is next, then Australia and the Philippines. Two nuclear powers and all their allies at war. Ukraine spillover. In November 2022, a missile hit a village in Poland and killed 2 people. Everyone blamed Russia. Hours later, investigators found it was a Ukrainian air defense missile that had gone off course. On September 10, 2025, about 19 Russian drones flew into Poland from Belarus. Polish and Dutch jets shot down at least 3. It was the first time NATO fired at anything Russian since the war began. Days later, Russian drones entered Romania. Russian fighter jets flew into Estonian airspace for 12 minutes. No one died in any of the 2025 incidents. Poland called for talks with allies, but did not trigger Article 5. In November 2024, Russia changed its nuclear rules. The new rules say even a regular attack backed by a nuclear power could justify a nuclear response. Article 5 says an attack on one NATO member is an attack on all. If triggered, 32 countries would be at war with Russia. Russia has the largest nuclear arsenal on Earth. India-Pakistan crisis. On April 22, 2025, gunmen killed 26 people in Indian-controlled Kashmir. It was the deadliest attack since Mumbai in 2008. 15 days later, India launched missile strikes on 9 targets deep inside Pakistan. It was the first time since 1971 that India struck Pakistani territory outside Kashmir. Both sides flew combat drones against each other for the first time. India hit an airbase just kilometers from Pakistan's nuclear command center. The fighting lasted 4 days. On May 9th, U.S. officials received alarming intelligence about possible escalation. Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio stepped in. A ceasefire came the next day. India has around 172 nuclear warheads. Pakistan has around 170. Both are building more. Pakistan's largest warheads are 20 times more powerful than Hiroshima. Pakistan does not promise to avoid using nuclear weapons first. Its military has said it would use them if it loses too much territory, if its army is destroyed, or if India chokes its economy. After the ceasefire, India found a way to do exactly that. It stopped honoring the 1960 Indus Waters Treaty. The Indus River flows from India into Pakistan. 80% of Pakistan's farmland depends on it. If India cuts off that water, Pakistan's economy dies. And that is when Pakistan said it would use nuclear weapons. Israel-Iran war. In June 2025, Israel and Iran fought their first direct war. Israel launched around 360 airstrikes across Iran. They killed over 30 senior military commanders and 11 nuclear scientists. Iran fired back with over 550 missiles and 1,000 drones at Israeli cities. On June 21st, the United States joined. American bombers hit Iran's nuclear sites at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. It was the first large-scale American attack on Iran since 1988. The fighting stopped 3 days later. Russia and China did nothing. On January 5, 2026, Israel approved more strikes. Iran says it has rebuilt everything that was destroyed. Intelligence reports say Iran is now making uranium pure enough for a bomb at secret sites. Before the June strikes, Iran could produce bomb material in less than a week. The strike set that back about 2 years. But experts say Iran is now more likely to actually build a weapon than before the war started. Israel has said it will never allow Iran to have a nuclear bomb. 20% of the world's oil passes through waters Iran controls. Russia and China stayed out the first time. If the war starts again, 3 nuclear powers could be fighting in the same region. South China Sea. In August 2025, a Chinese Coast Guard ship crashed into a Chinese Navy destroyer near Scarborough Shoal while chasing a Philippine boat. At least 2 Chinese sailors died. China's own ships hit each other. This was not unusual. Chinese Coast Guard ships ram Philippine boats almost every week. They blast them with water cannons. They block supplies from reaching Filipino outposts. China claims almost all of the South China Sea. So do the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Taiwan. In 2016, an international court ruled China's claims illegal. China ignored it as trillions of dollars in goods pass through these waters every year. The Philippines is a U.S. ally. The 2 countries signed a defense treaty in 1951. In 2019, the U.S. confirmed the treaty covers the South China Sea. The Philippines president said 1 dead Filipino would trigger it. So far, no Filipino has died. 1 does, and the U.S. is at war with China. Russia attacks Baltics. Between Poland and Lithuania, there is a 65-kilometer road called the Suwalki Gap. On one side is Belarus. On the other is Kaliningrad, a piece of Russia cut off from the rest of the country. If Russia takes that road, the Baltic states are cut off from NATO. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are all NATO members. During the Cold War, they were part of the Soviet Union. NATO's leader warned that Russia could be ready to attack a member state within 5 years after the Ukraine war ends. In April 2025, Germany sent soldiers to Lithuania to stay. It was the first time German troops were based abroad since World War II. Russia's army is stuck in Ukraine right now, but Russian factories are making weapons faster than before the war started. Military experts say Russia could seize the Suwalki Gap in hours. Taking it back means a full war. Every NATO member would have to choose, fight a nuclear power or watch the alliance collapse. North Korea attack. In December 2025, Kim Jong-un ordered his military to make more missiles. North Korea already has around 50 nuclear bombs. In June 2024, North Korea signed a deal with Russia. If one is attacked, the other helps. North Korean soldiers are already fighting in Ukraine next to Russian troops. In September 2022, North Korea changed its rules for using nuclear weapons. The new rules say North Korea can strike first if it thinks an attack is coming. It does not have to wait. 28,500 American soldiers are based in South Korea. American bases sit across Japan. Both countries have defense deals with the United States. China shares a border with North Korea. In 1950, when American troops pushed toward that border, China sent hundreds of thousands of soldiers to push them back. China still has a defense deal with North Korea from 1961. If North Korea attacks South Korea, America responds. If American troops push north, China and Russia are both bound by treaty to step in. 4 nuclear powers in the same war. AI false alarm. On September 26, 1983, a Soviet computer said 5 American missiles were flying toward Russia. The officer on duty, Stanislav Petrov, had minutes to decide. He chose to ignore the computer. It was a false alarm. Sunlight bouncing off clouds had fooled the satellites. Today, the United States, Russia, and China are all putting AI into their nuclear warning systems. AI looks at data faster than any human. The Pentagon says AI is now helping to watch for missiles. A president has about 6 minutes to decide once a warning comes in. There is no time to check if the machine is wrong. To make things worse, the US-Russia hotline is not being used. Russia stopped answering after the Ukraine war started. The US-China hotline takes 48 hours to get a response. In 1983, a human caught the mistake. Next time, a machine might not. Nile Water War. In 2011, Ethiopia began building the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on the Nile River. When finished, it will be the largest dam in Africa. Ethiopia says 65 million of its people have no electricity. The dam will change that. But the Nile does not end in Ethiopia. It flows north into Sudan and then Egypt. Egypt gets 97% of its water from the Nile. 100 million people depend on it. Egypt says the dam will cut off its water. Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan have been talking for over 10 years, but have not reached a deal. Ethiopia started filling the dam anyway. Egypt's president said all options are on the table. In 2020, Egypt's foreign minister said his country would not allow its water to be taken. Egypt has the largest military in Africa, with American weapons and French fighter jets. Ethiopia has an army that just finished a civil war. Both countries have ties to Russia, China, and the United States. This would be the first major war fought over water, a war in Africa that pulls in the same powers already facing off over Ukraine, Taiwan, and the Middle East. North Korea collapse. The Kim family has ruled North Korea since 1948, 3 generations. There is no plan for what happens if the government falls. North Korea has nuclear bombs hidden across the country, in tunnels, bunkers, and trucks that move them around. If the government falls, those weapons have no one guarding them. The United States and China both have plans to go in and take control of them, but neither has shared those plans with the other. American forces would push north from South Korea. Chinese forces would push south from the border. There is no deal on who stops where, and no way to talk in real time. The last time American and Chinese forces met in Korea, the war lasted 3 years and killed millions. Both sides now have nuclear weapons. Arms control collapse. In February 2026, the New START treaty expired. It was the last deal limiting how many nuclear weapons the United States and Russia can have. Neither side renewed it. During the Cold War, the US and Soviet Union built over 60,000 nuclear bombs combined. Arms control deals brought that number down to 1,550 on each side. Without New START, both countries can build as many as they want. Russia has already said it is making more. The United States has announced plans to rebuild its entire nuclear stockpile. China is building too. It had around 200 nuclear weapons in 2019. By 2035, it could have over 1,500. The treaties also required inspections. Officials from both sides visited each other's bases, so they knew what the other had. Without the treaty, that stops too. The last time there were no limits was before 1972. Back then, both sides kept building until they had enough weapons to destroy the world many times over. Now there are 3 countries in that race instead of 2. Cyber attack on infrastructure. In 2021, hackers shut down the Colonial Pipeline, which sends fuel to the east coast of the United States. Gas stations ran dry for days. The company paid millions to get control back. That attack came from a criminal group looking for money. In 2024, U.S. officials said China had hidden code inside American water systems, power grids, and pipelines. The code was not turned on. Officials said it was sitting there, ready to be used in a future war. An attack on a power grid could leave millions without electricity for weeks. Hospitals, water systems, and banks all need power to run. A winter attack could kill thousands. The problem is knowing who did it. A cyber attack can bounce through dozens of countries before it hits. By the time anyone figures out where it came from, the damage is done, and the attacker can say it was not them. There are no rules that say what counts as an act of war in cyberspace. A country could lose its power grid and have no clear target to hit back at, or worse, hit back at the wrong one. Rare earth embargo. In 2010, China stopped sending rare earth metals to Japan after a dispute over islands in the East China Sea. The ban lasted 2 months. Japan had to back down. China controls about 60% of the world's rare earth mining and 90% of the processing. These metals go into phones, electric cars, wind turbines, and computer chips. They also go into fighter jets, missiles, and satellites. A single F-35 fighter jet needs about 920 pounds of rare earth materials. The United States military needs them for almost every advanced weapon it builds. In 2023, China banned exports of gallium and germanium to the United States. In 2024, it added more metals to the list. Each time, China said the bans were about national security. The United States has rare earths in the ground, but almost no way to turn them into usable materials. Building that would take years. If a conflict starts over Taiwan or the South China Sea, China could cut off rare earths completely. The United States and its allies would not be able to build new weapons or replace the ones they lose. Space war or satellite attack. In 2007, China used a missile to destroy one of its own satellites. In 2021, Russia did the same thing. Both were tests. Both showed they can take out satellites in orbit. Satellites do more than take pictures. They tell countries when missiles are being launched. They help weapons hit their targets. They tell ships and planes where they are. The U.S. military depends on them for almost everything. If a country loses its early warning satellites, it cannot see missiles coming. A president would have 6 minutes to decide whether to launch, with no way to know if an attack is real. GPS satellites guide bombs and help troops move. Without them, a modern military cannot fight the way it is used to. There are no treaties about war in space. No rules that say what counts as an attack or what happens after. If a country suddenly loses its satellites during a crisis, it does not know why. It could be the start of a nuclear attack, or it could be something else. The problem is, there is no time to figure it out. Iran gets the bomb. The June 2025 strikes set Iran's nuclear program back about 2 years, but Iran is still building. If Israel strikes again, Iran rebuilds again. At some point, Iran may finish before anyone can stop it. If Iran gets a bomb, it does not end there. In 2018, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman said on television that if Iran gets a nuclear weapon, Saudi Arabia will get one too. The kingdom has the money and has already talked to Pakistan about help. If Saudi Arabia goes nuclear, Turkey and Egypt have said they would think about doing the same. Today, Israel is the only country in the Middle East with nuclear weapons. If Iran finishes its bomb, there could be 5 within 10 years. 5 countries with nuclear bombs, in a region that has been at war for most of the last century. If you'd like to see more stories like this, make sure to subscribe and feel free to drop suggestions for the next video in the comments.